I'm Carlos Diaz in for Jane Velez Mitchell tonight. The plot thickens in Hollywood as cops try to find out who killed famed publicist Ronnie Chasen. A person of interest in the case kills himself, and now as cops try to figure out if he had any connection to Ronnie Chasen, another theory is now emerging. Was Chasen's murder a result of road rage? TMZ reports sources connected to the investigation say Ronnie Chasen had a temper and that cops are seriously investigating this road rage scenario. Chasen was shot 5 times as she drove through Beverly Hills after her movie premiere party 2 weeks ago. Now, the Hollywood Reporter reports it's likely the gunman was in a vehicle that pulled up next to her. So far, cops haven't found any connection between Ronnie Chasen and that guy who killed himself. So are they back at square one? I gotta tell you, this is turning out to be a true Hollywood whodunit. Straight out to my fantastic expert panel. Let's begin with Radar Online senior news editor Mary Margaret. Mary, what's the very latest?
What we do know is that police are chasing a lot of roads that kind of lead to dead ends. Obviously, this suspect who shot himself before they could serve him was sort of their hot lead. But again, that's sort of leading to a nowhere resolution. There seems to be no connection between him and Ronnie Chasen, and friends, colleagues, and police are still searching for more clues.
Well, it was a tip, Mary, from the TV show America's Most Wanted that led cops to the person of interest named Harold Smith. Now, he shot himself in the head as cops tried to talk to him. This right here, this is the lobby of the apartment building where Smith killed himself. We're told the shooting was captured on surveillance tape, and there were several witnesses in the lobby at the time. Now, people who knew this guy say he served time for drugs and firearms charges and that he would rather die than go back to prison. And now TMZ is reporting that Smith may have in fact killed himself because he possibly committed several burglaries in the area. Now, former police detective Steve Kardian, what do you know about all of that?
Well, he's got an extensive criminal history, and he had made statements that he was going to kill himself rather than go back to jail. Now, when law enforcement arrived, if he believed that he was going to go for those burglaries, in all likelihood, he took his own life. And if there's anybody that hired this man, they weren't thinking very well. This would be a real bad crime. Anybody involved with her is going to have the kind of money that would take to do the job done, get the job done correctly, if you will.
But Steve, I mean, you're a former police detective. How often does a guy pull out a gun and blow his own head off? You know, when he's about to be questioned.
Oh, it's rare, but it does happen. It certainly adds mystery to the case. They're going to look at him with a fine-tooth comb. The ballistics are going to tell a lot about the weapon that he killed himself with, that they do in fact match up. So they're not going to discount anything, but the probability that he was the killer, he's likely not.
Well, Steve, Radar Online is reporting that Ronnie Chasen had plans to rewrite her will only 2 months before she was murdered. So what did she want to change? TMZ says Chasen left about $60,000 to charity and the rest to relatives, but that she shut out her niece Jill, only giving her, get this, $10. Stacey Honowitz, this will was dated 1994. Chasen's brother says there's another will from 2006 in a safety deposit box. So what happens next?
Well, certainly, Carlos, what's going on now, as Steve mentioned, is they're investigating any kind of lead they possibly have, because it truly is a Hollywood whodunit, like you said. They have to go down every avenue they possibly can. So they are looking at a myriad of situations: road rage, what this Harold Smith might have known, what's going on with the probate, the will, who was left in it, who maybe was angered by what was left. I mean, these are all not stretches. These are all things that might lead to an answer. But right now, they are keeping it very close-lipped, which I think is great, especially in the Hollywood community, where you think it would be so, talked about so much, because it's a pending investigation, and they really are investigating so many different leads. There's nothing really much to talk about with regard to one lead.
Okay, I got to say, this whole road rage thing, right now, I'm inclined to call BS on the road rage thing, and I'll tell you why. I travel this road every single day, leaving CNN LA, going back to my place on Wilshire. I make the left on Whittier. I make that same left off of Sunset all the time. This stretch of road heading west on Sunset before you get to Whittier is quite possibly the nicest, most serene stretch of road in the entire world. I mean, the houses that are in the neighborhoods adjacent to this road on Sunset, they're some of the nicest houses you'd ever see. Let's bring Steve Kardian back on this. Steve, you know the area, you know Beverly Hills. It's not exactly a place where people are just seething with road rage.
No, Carlos, and you know, some people that I've been involved with in investigations and arrested for road rage, you just can't believe the immediate energy that they do. And these are some, I'm talking about people that are IBMers, people that are doctors, that exhibit such an emotional, extreme outrage. So it's a possibility that law enforcement just can't discount until they have a general or a good direction to go in with regard to this case.
The person that they were looking for showed up. They attempted to talk to the suspect. When they did, the suspect produced a handgun, and there was a self-inflicted gunshot wound at that point in time, and the suspect was pronounced at the scene.
We were gone for a couple hours, and as we returned, walking down the block here, all hell broke loose here in Hollywood, and the police were coming from all different angles, choppers in the air, and of course they had surrounded the building, and unfortunately a man took his own life.
I'm Carlos Diaz in for Jane Velez Mitchell. Chaos at a Hollywood apartment building when a person of interest in the murder of publicist Ronnie Chasen kills himself rather than talking to the cops. And now TMZ's reporting road rage could be a potential theory behind Chasen's murder. I got to tell you, in a town like Hollywood, we could have 10 more theories in the next 24 hours. Right out to Brenda Wade. Brenda, you're a clinical psychologist. You would have to have extreme road rage to pop somebody 5 times in the chest. Am I right?
Yeah, that would be pretty extreme. But you know, Carlos, that the most common motives for murder are love and money.
We're going to have all these theories in the next 24 hours. 24 hours ago, we have this guy killing himself. And I mean, a good place to start looking for clues will be the gun that Harold Smith used.
But this guy clearly sounds like he was unstable, Carlos. I have to say, when I look at his profile, he seems too unstable to carry out a plan.
But could he have been part of that plan? Former LA Police Chief Bill Bratton talked about all of this on the CBS Early Show.
I'll be able to examine the weapon that the gentleman had in his possession. They'll be able to question all of his friends relative to his activities. Weapon will be key. Also, what they had in the search warrant that they supposedly had. What were they looking for?
Pat Brown, if Harold Smith didn't have anything to do with the Ronnie Chasen murder, the guy's bragging about it to all his neighbors. I mean, are we starting to lean to the fact that this guy could be wacko?
Yeah, well, that is a good possibility. When this first broke that this guy had killed himself and the police have been surveilling him, my question was, did the information come from somebody around him where he was talking stuff and they turned the tip in, or did it come from Ronnie Chasen's end of it and they followed that tip to him? If they followed it to him, then I'd say he's the guy that shot her. However, if he was just talking crap, which it seems now that's what he was doing, and then it might just be that he's nuts. As a matter of fact, he did say, you know, he wanted to go out in a blaze. It almost seems like he's one of those guys who would possibly commit a mass murder, except he didn't bother with it, or a suicide by cop. In other words, he was middle-aged, a felon, probably couldn't get work, frustrated in life, going a little nutso, and thought, hey, this will be cool. You know, if they come after me, I'll just kill myself. So it may just be that's all it was, and they're going to be back to the drawing board.
Carlos,
yeah.
The judges won't just sign a search warrant. They've got to have good probable cause to issue a search warrant.
So but does that point to what theory does that point to? I mean, that would point to the theory that it's not just some, you know, they're not going off a tip from somebody who's calling in and saying, hey, this guy's bragging about their murder. It had to be something deeper than that. Am I correct?
And that's yes, you're correct. And it's also possible that search warrant could not or may not have been directly related to the homicide. It may be related to something else with him as a person of interest or a possible suspect. Well, with such a high-profile murder case comes dozens of theories. You guys stay tight. We'll have much more on this coming up right after the break.